the Premier League preview and FA Cup. So it's a weekend special over here on Tariq Talks. Guys, get your predictions ready. We're going to be deep diving into all of the games this weekend involving even Sheffield United versus Blackburn, and who would have thought Grimsby. We'll be talking about those as well. So get everything ready, guys, and so much more. We've got plenty of topics to talk about on this busy Friday night of football. So join us for this preview show. Wagwan, everyone. I hope you're doing well, and welcome back to this special show with here my brother, as you can see, the co-host, the amazing co-host who does a lot of work behind the scenes with this show as well, in my bro Edmin. How you doing, man?
Not too bad, not too bad. Paxton, 9 minutes is good for us. 9 minutes is good.
Oh, but yeah, man. How's your week been? You had a good week yourself and then watching the football?
It's been all right. I've watched a bit of football this week. Teach, my wife isn't very well, so I've had a little bit more free reign to stare at my at the computer or at my phone watching some football. Yeah, so digested quite a lot. I did miss last night's game, so I know we'll touch on Arsenal very shortly. But I picked up on that after the fact. So, but it's been a fun week. It's been a good week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's been plenty of football this week. Did we have a Monday night game? Did we have a Monday night game this week?
Yeah, it was a Brentford game, wasn't it?
Brentford. Did they? No, they didn't play. No, that was last week against Brentford. Fulham.
Yeah,
I think we've had football every day apart from Monday, because we had the Tuesdays with the Champions League. We had Wednesday's Champions League as well as the midweek fixtures.
And a game right now, right?
And a game right now, which is what, 10 minutes in. We're not including that one in the preview show, guys. Forest, Newcastle, just because, we was going to do this as a pre-record, but we thought we got a bit of time on the Friday night. We might miss that game. Sorry, Forest or Newcastle fans, but they won't be watching this now because they'll be too busy watching the game.
What's quickly on that? What's your prediction? Because we are still doing predictions. It's
okay,
0-0 at the minute.
All right, then predictions. I'm gonna go for a 1-0 Newcastle win. Don't think there'll be too many goals. What's yours?
I went 2-1 Newcastle.
2-1. Yeah. Well, dude, I don't even know who's playing for Newcastle, to be honest. So yeah,
they're dead to us because we're not doing the game. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And also maybe what happened last week.
Oh yeah, let's not start.
But let's get into it.
We've got a lot to talk about, so guys, settle in. This might be a long one.
It will be, exactly. So there will be plenty. But before we get into it, let me just big up each and every one of you that's in the comment section right now. We got Pax in here. Hope you're keeping good. We got Football Power Hour here. Go check them out, people. Man United fan. I hope you're keeping good, my brother. Big up Shay in the building. Big up Mr. 200, Granddaddy Guna, saying good evening, Tariq, and good evening, Ed. Good evening to you as well, Yuvraj. Hope you're keeping good. Nice catching you in here as well. And we've got Patrick in the place. Big up yourself, my brother. Hope you're keeping good and well. As you can see, a Manchester City fan. So I'm sure you'll be interested to hear us talk about this first. We'll talk about Arsenal Crystal Palace first. But before we talk about that game, we have to speak about Arsenal going out in the Europa League. For me, before we hear Ed's thoughts on the game, because I know you wasn't able to watch the game, I thought that Sporting Club de Portugal, they don't like to be called Lisbon anymore. So Sporting Club de Portugal, they started the game really well. Even before we picked up those injuries to Tomiyasu and Saliba, they started on the front foot, looking dangerous throughout. Arsenal settled into the game as soon as they scored that. I wouldn't even say we settled in just before that goal. That goal helped us settle down from Granit Xhaka after a wonderful ball from Jorginho. Arsenal settled then, and we ended the first half stronger. And Gabriel Jesus was on fire. It was great to see him starting and playing the first 45 minutes. And yeah, it was great. It was great to see. And we thought, after a tricky start with those injuries and not a great performance to begin with, we thought maybe we'll manage this game and go on to win. Then Sporting, really, in the second half, you would say that they were the better team. And then it kind of changed again after extra time, where Arsenal dominated, and Arsenal had plenty of chances to score. Trossard with the main one. So that was like a quick overview of that game. My thoughts and feelings. they've been very indifferent throughout. Going into the game, bro, I was very excited and I was looking forward to that Sporting game. And I was like, right, I want to get through into this now. I want to get through to the next round. Let's see how we cope. Let's see. I want to, have a good performance. I was confident going into it. I really didn't even feel threatened of a loss. And I was probably too arrogant looking at that. And then as soon as we picked up those 2 injuries, my first thought was, I don't actually mind going out anymore. Because I knew, like, when I saw those injuries, made it a reality to me that, hold on, these amount of games, we're playing a very strong team. It's going to take its toll on us, and physically and mentally, with Thursday, Sunday football and whatever, however that would play out. And my mindset and my focus completely switched, and I felt like that's what happened to the players in terms of going into this game. Their heads were in it, but their hearts weren't going into it, and that's why Sporting, they were giving everything for this. This is their season because they aren't performing so well in their league. They're not anywhere near as good as they have done in the previous year, so they were giving their all, and I didn't feel like Arsenal were. And then after the game when we lost, I felt, I was still okay. I was still fine with it. Let's move on. And then I woke up this morning and I was watching the draw, and I was, this is a bit annoying, a bit frustrating. I wanted to be involved in this. It's seeing these big teams. Arsenal don't have this European pedigree. It's our first big opportunity to, and I felt disappointed then. But as time's gone by, my mindset and my thought has completely changed. It's gone back to what I was straight after those injuries, and I'm like, this gives clarity. It gives clear direction for us to focus fully on that Premier League, that big opportunity that we have. I understand it puts more pressure, and if we don't get that, then we're going to be looking back at that Sporting game and saying, right, we didn't win the Premier League, and we didn't even compete really for the Europa League, being one of the favourites going into that. But if we win the Premier League, we'll be looking back at this and thinking, oh, yeah, at least we're not in the Europa League. We got our main goal. We achieved our dream. We won't even be caring about this defeat to Sporting. Really in looking back, if we have the trophy, if we have the Premier League's winners medal. So that's how I'm feeling now. But bro, I spoke for a while there, but what's your thoughts and feelings as a non-Arsenal fan, as a neutral, on that defeat and what it could mean for the rest of the season?
I think the first thing I noticed when I was checking on BBC Sport app last night, so I saw the results coming through, and my first thought was that's a dropped ball for me. I think the possession stats, everything seemed to point to Arsenal were playing well, and it was a ding dong bit of a game. And I saw it as an opportunity for Arsenal to keep that winning mentality going. And again, this is without watching even the highlights at this point. It felt like it was a missed opportunity. And then when you start to notice that, okay, Saliba's injured and gone off in 21 minutes, Tomiyasu has gone off before or after, one of the two. And you go, okay, well, there's you starting centre back in your first choice, sort of full back off the bench, or rotation right back when you need more aerial ability. And it's like, oh, okay, what does this mean for the season? The main goal, which is the Premier League. So I feel like the injuries are the biggest takeaway for me from that game. I think that's the worst possible outcome. Would have been an injury to a key player, an injury to a key squad player, and a loss. It probably couldn't have gone worse for Arsenal.
With 120 minutes in the tank.
Yeah. Last night. And the goals are worldy. What a strike that is from an ex-Wolves player. So just saying. And it's one of those goals, one in a lifetime sort of strikes. It's something you can't really legislate for. Ramsdale's not really at fault, despite the fact that he doesn't look great when a goalkeeper's pedaling backwards and all that kind of stuff. But who's expecting a shot from there, from a ball breaking from a broken play in the middle of the park? But I'm interested because I've noticed in the comments a few of the Arsenal fans are saying that there was sort of a lack of effort. Was that true in your view of the Arsenal? Because I'm only asking because I've listened to a podcast today, and it's Andy Brassel, who's one of the best European knowledgeable on European football English journalists, and he said that Sporting haven't played that well for the whole season, other than their first leg against Arsenal and last night. So it must have been one hell of a performance from them for someone to say that they are mediocre in their league at the minute, but for some reason this European bent that they're on at the moment is incredible. So were Arsenal fully blooded into last night, or do you think there was an eye on the Premier League?
Honestly, no, we weren't. And the best way to quantify that in terms of statistics, guys, you may have seen me point this out in terms of our passes per defensive action, and that's more passes what happens against. It was more than double, almost trebled in terms of how many passes Sporting were allowed to make, and what that shows is Arsenal weren't pressing anywhere near at the intensity. Arsenal average about 7 to 8 passes per defensive action, meaning that the opposition will make about 7 to 8 passes before Arsenal going to try and make a tackle, an interception, or a header, an aerial duel, anything like that. Whereas yesterday, it was 18 to 20 every time, which is a massive leap. And that shows that Arsenal weren't as coherent in the press. And that is essentially the amount of effort. So Arsenal didn't exert as much energy. And we've seen this with even the first game against Sporting, with how Bukayo Saka was playing. He had a good end to the game, but you could definitely see he was managing the game. And this is something I've seen Martinelli do at occasions, and quite a few players. The fact that Partey, Ødegaard, and Saka, who are three key players who are part of that spine in the midfield areas and our attack and our defense as well, that they didn't start, says a lot. But Arteta did rotate in some areas, and it was still a very strong side. So yeah, in terms of that, there was a clear lack of. It wasn't an unprofessional amount of effort, because there was one occasion in extra time where Arsenal flooded players back, and I wish I could show it, and I wish I could get the screenshot for you right now, but I didn't get this sorted. But it's a good point that Andy Brassel's made there, and it's a good question. Honestly, no, we didn't show that amount of effort in that there.
As an Arsenal fan, and I'll ask the guys in the chat as well, obviously the Premier League's the gold standard, right? That's what everyone wants. But is there some regret in the fact that you kind of went out with that kind of performance that you just described, where there was questions over whether you were managing the game well? Like, does that hurt more because of that? Do you wish that you were blown away instead, for instance?
No, because with the players that were the rotation type of players, so your Jorginhos, your Vieiras, they were the ones who didn't perform as well. And I thought that it was a bit more of a reality check to where this current Arsenal team is at, with Vieiras, your Jorginhos. On here, you've heard me give a lot of praise to Jorginho. You've praised Jorginho a lot, but we know his defensive limitations, his physical limitations, from a position where it is required so much. I only think there's about 2 players in the world that currently that can do what is required in that position, in that defensive midfield role, which it requires a lot of athleticism and a lot of technical ability to play the ball forward. Jorginho's got that, but he doesn't have the athleticism, which is why Arsenal fans talk about Partey in such high regard, such high regard, because of what Arteta and Pep demand from that role right there. You're having a look at Calvin Phillips, who can't get into that team. Do you know what I mean? And Calvin Phillips, it was highly rated by so many for what he's done in this shirt. And even he can't even get a game and whatnot. So there is not that regret it's kind of given me perspective of where Vieira currently is. He was poor. I thought he was poor. He was very poor in possession. You can see he's got technical ability, but he was giving it away. His pressing, and how many times have you heard me, bro, talk about how that's why Odegaard's so important, taking away from all his quality and the technical gifts that he has, but how he leads in the press and how he's just a leader in general. We missed that. So no, I was a bit disappointed not to see Kieran Tierney, and that kind of gives you an indication on his future at Arsenal in my eyes. If I was to guess now, I don't think he will be here, but we still had chances to win, and so it's not as heartbreaking. It wasn't the performance was not at the level that we've seen for majority of the season, but it wasn't embarrassing at the same time. Do you understand? So I don't feel like we're going to get too much mental damage from this in that sense. I was also going to say as well, like when I mentioned this a little bit about the heart wasn't in it, but the heads were. I could see that the players were trying, like they were trying to a certain extent, but managing the heart. Arsenal have been a very emotional team this year in terms of how we've set, how you've seen us lose our heads at times, even under Mikel Arteta previously, but how we've won games in the last moments and how you've seen us celebrate. We didn't show that sort of emotion in this game, whereas with Sporting, when you saw the red card from Agate, you could see how they were running and how they were making block shots. They were all in for this. And, there's two sides of the coin. Like I can see Luke in the chat right now. He's disappointed because of Arsenal's history. Like we haven't, for a club of our size, it's unacceptable really to have this, this European history or the lack of, shall I say. And Paxton doesn't agree. You have to battle on all fronts. I think the team has quality. Guess what? We played a really strong team and we still haven't been able to perform. We haven't performed in any Europa League game this season, bro. Every single Europa League game I've not enjoyed. We've not been nowhere near our fluid best. And we have played with the squad that we have, a relatively strong one. And this is something that I've spoken to you about as well. I don't believe that this Arsenal team, I never believed that they were able to compete on all fronts due to the depth. This is why Eric Ten Hag said what he said about Arsenal haven't had any injuries and have played almost been available for almost every game. Paraphrasing there. Absolute lie, but that's because he's looking at Arsenal and we make the fewest amount of changes in the Premier League. That's because Arteta knows his best team. We don't have the depth. We don't have someone who can come in and replace Odegaard yet. Vieira may be that, but he's not there at the level right now today. We don't have someone who can come in for Bukayo Saka. We've only just got someone who's been able to come in for Martinelli, and that's Trossard. And do you agree with me in terms of what I'm saying there? We don't quite have the depth to be competing on all fronts in multiple competitions.
No, definitely not. The fact that Reece Nelson came on the other day out of nowhere and was the hero when I genuinely forgot he was still at Arsenal, I think says everything you need to about the fact that, we know Ten Hag is wrong. Even just losing Gabriel Jesus shows that injuries have been an issue this year, but I know he's not been the only issue you've had injury-wise, but that in itself makes that comment redundant, if you ask me. So no, the depth isn't there, is it? And when you are battling this Man City machine, I think, and I've said it on many previous shows, Liverpool's failure of this season that it seems to be at the moment, I think is a culmination of 5 years of battling Pep and Man City on all fronts constantly for 5 seasons, including winning one through the pandemic, getting into every game they possibly could last year, keeping up the levels that you need to just beat Man City alone is ridiculous. And Arsenal don't have the depth. You are no one, not even the most toxic of positive gooners, would have thought that you'd have been 5 clear after 30 games or whatever we're on at the minute. So it's come around soon. And clearly the players, from what you're saying, maybe the tactics were there, but the heart wasn't, because they know the Palace games at the weekend, we're 5 points clear. City going to keep coming. City have the depth. And we know City have the depth because of how they funded their squad. Let's not forget.
Absolutely.
So no, and I get it. And the only thing, the last thing I want to say on Arsenal, and this, you don't have a European pedigree. It's not that easy to have a European pedigree. It's so hard to
PSG,
perform.
Man City.
It's so hard to perform in Europe with such consistency without, in recent years, the backing of an oil state, without a nation state, or in Real Madrid's case, basically the whole country is, and the footballing setup of Spain is built to essentially make Real Madrid and Barcelona the top dogs. And what Atletico are doing is ridiculous when you look at how even their TV structure is dealt with. So it's not that easy to have a European pedigree. It really isn't. So, and we've seen, Inter, AC Milan drop off a cliff. Barcelona haven't won anything for a while. It's not that easy. And for Arsenal to have been so competitive in Europe, out of Europe, winning FA Cups when the chips were down, it's silly to say that just because maybe you don't have a Champions League that you have this weird lack of European pedigree. I think being in the Champions League for as long as you had been is a pedigree of sorts.
Yeah, exactly. And what I'd say, reply to this comment from Paxton, that small time mentality for me, you have the second best squad depth out of the top four. I mean, that's not true, because we weren't even regarded as being the top four team at the start of the season. So not to have the second best, I don't think that's the case. But I don't think it's small time mentality, because, Ed, can you answer me this question? When's the last time we've had a league and European double in the Premier League? 1999, when United won the treble.
Did Chelsea not do it? No.
Nope, because whenever they win the Champions League, they were either fourth or sixth.
It's hard.
So this shows you how much this Premier League takes out of you. If Arsenal were in fourth and we were 5 points clear of fifth, I'd be responding about this game completely differently, because you can afford to lose games when you're fighting for top four. We've seen that. We've even seen it this season. Arsenal, you can be finishing the top four with 70 points. Arsenal, 3 points off of that, all sorts, something like that now. For this Arsenal team, the overachievement that we currently have, and we know in phase 3 of what Mikel Arteta said of this team, I know where we're at, and we're not built to compete on multiple fronts yet. At the very highest level, especially with this Premier League, when you've got a Manchester City side who haven't been at their best, but they have a striker that might score 40 Premier League goals or something, 30 to 40 Premier League goals this season, and he's just scored 5 goals in the Champions League. This is what I know what I'm coming up against, and I'm looking at it from a realistic point of view. Remember this: how many league and European doubles have happened since Manchester United in this league? Man United, 2008. There you go. There's one out of how many? Do you know what I mean?
That was 15 years ago. So
15 years ago. And bearing in mind, look at the Manchester City and Liverpool's levels that they both performed at. It's difficult. And those have been juggernauts of teams with arguably the best managers in the world, the best players and the best squads. It is difficult. It is difficult indeed. So yeah, well brought up, Noli. Well remembered.
Right, I did say I had one. I didn't have any more, but
yeah,
I do. Arsenal have to win the league now, right?
Absolutely.
For this season to have any modicum of
success. To say this season will be a success, Arsenal have to win the league.
Yeah.
If we don't win the league, you cannot say this season's a success. You can say it's progress, and it's progress from where we have been. But to call any season a success, I believe you need trophies. You need to have medals. You need to have seen armpits at the end of the season. Because how can Arsenal, say Spurs finish in the top 4 and Arsenal finish second? Yes, we're we've progressed and we've got higher progression than Spurs, but it's not. There's nothing quantifiable to show that that it's a much better season than Spurs, even though they've been poor. Look at how both fans are looking at their squad now. Look at how we spoke about Liverpool, who had a fan who were unbelievable, almost winning the quadruple. They won the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, and the reason why they paraded them trophies was to have say, you know what, although we didn't achieve what we wanted, we've got something to remember this season by. If you don't have anything to remember this season by, it's not terrible, because it's good building blocks for the next part of the for next season, but this isn't a success. Do you understand? Do you agree with me on that as well?
Oh, definitely. I've said it many times to you off this channel and on it. This is a chance, not unlike the Leicester season, where there's so much transition and Arsenal have been so consistent, and that's the reason you've been so good and so consistent. That's the reason you're top of the league. This is the year for a team that are doing what Arsenal are doing right now have to succeed. This is the kind of perfect storm, if you will, that we're in at the moment for any club from 12 down that looks like they could get relegated.
Yeah.
We've got that middle lot. You've got Chelsea and Liverpool bottling in 1 week, looking great. You've got Spurs looking terrible and still fourth. You've got Newcastle's rearranging their deck chairs with their new money. You've got Man City with everything going off the field with them. Man United in a rebuild. This is the perfect storm for a well-organised, well-oiled machine such as Arsenal have been this year to take this chance. And I think it has to be a success. The only way it's a successful season is to win something now, because next year the lay of the land might be completely different.
Exactly that. Spot on. And listen, before we get into the game, I just want to have a look at a few of your comments.
A lot of comments.
Big up each and every one of you that's locked in here right now. It's, you know what, this is the time where we discuss and we chat. Big up everyone that is in here right now. Let me see what you're saying. So I can just see here. Bargav, English teams disrespect European teams all the time. Europe's a different game. It's knockout football. Games are won on moments in this one. It's not across 38 games. You don't have a period, where it is how you turn up in those moments. It's why Pep Guardiola has struggled to win the amount that he should have. For a manager of his quality, for the teams that he's had, they dominate, but in those moments, Spurs have been able to knock them out, and other teams, Monaco, Lyon, etc. It's how you manage those moments, and hence why in Europe, a lot of pragmatic managers do so well. Am I right, bro, in saying Diego Simeone, whenever he's been in the Europa League, they've won? Unai Emery has 4 of those Europa Leagues. Carlo Ancelotti last year was very pragmatic.
It's how Mourinho made his name, let's not forget.
Absolutely, exactly. So pragmatism tends to be successful. Di Matteo's got a Champions League medal. Thomas Tuchel's got one, and it just shows you it's how you manage those moments, and that's something that we're gonna have to. That's next phase. That's for next season. For a stature of Arsenal, they should not be allowed to get knocked. They shouldn't be getting knocked out this early in the Europa. Now you have to win the Premier League now. Absolutely, I agree with that. We shouldn't be getting knocked out anywhere this early. But in terms of our chance of winning the Premier League, if you aren't gonna win the competition, this is the best time to get knocked out. In that sense, I will say. Interesting with that there. Manchester Mania says, I hate Arsenal, but I love Tariq, so I want them to win the title so I can see him smile. Hey, big up yourself, my bro, Mania. That's good. That is. I love that. Love that right there. A draw for Arsenal against Man City is enough. No shame if you park the bus and defend like hell. Yeah, a draw is good enough. Arteta won't do that, though. I can guarantee you now that he won't be doing that. Pack says, when I heard Erdegaard wasn't starting, I was gobsmacked, not gonna lie. Yeah, it just kind of shows you he took it seriously, but he didn't take it serious. He wasn't, there's one eye still on that Premier League game. And protecting players for that. So that's essentially why I think we lost that one. Mr. 200, gutted we are out. Winning that game, even if on pens after 120 minutes, would have been a boost for the weekend. Losing like that, the players will be feeling the fatigue more on Sunday than if won. But then you can also flip it on the other side and say, whenever Arsenal faced adversity this season, we've bounced back and we've shown real cojones and fight, and maybe this will put them even more fire into the belly as they do have clarity now. They know what they're looking at. 11 finals to go. Our season is mapped out. We know what we need to do, and we should be winning the league now. I think Man City are dropping more points, and we'll get into them in their draw. But look at how things have worked out. Manchester City will at minimum be playing 17 more games this season at a minimum. This is when Arsenal have got 11. Man City don't necessarily have a stronger squad as they did before, because we've got two of them who were key squad players and rotating players for them. And yeah, we'll talk about Man City and get into them when we get into that game as well. Big up yourself as well, Moss, and I've seen you in here too. So yeah, big up to each and every one of you as we're going to get into the preview for Arsenal versus Crystal Palace now. So keep your comments coming in, people, as we get into it here. But Ed, hit us with the records and stats as we actually, before we turn ahead onto Arsenal versus
I was going to say,
there is one more thing
we're going to talk about St. Patrick's Day.
It is St. Patrick's Day, isn't it? So, and a certain Patrick has lost his job. And yeah, we'll talk about this as well, Pax. Ed, I want to hear your thoughts on this first in terms of this. We've kind of spoken about Crystal Palace when we get towards the end, usually, of these Premier League preview shows. What's your thoughts on Crystal Palace sacking Patrick Vieira?
The timing's weird for me. It's obviously not winning a game in 2023 or whatever it is that the stat that's been going around. I think says it all, really, doesn't it? That we talk about them every week. That there's a chance that they'll draw, but not a chance they'll win. One shot on target in the last 3 games. The credit in the bank for managers in the Premier League runs dry so quickly. Last year, Patrick Vieira was the apple of everyone's eye in terms of the job he'd done to revamp the squad after Roy had left, the ability to make it like 5 years younger in average, letting some of those more attacking players flourish a little bit better, like Elise and Eze when he hasn't been injured. But I get it. I get the sacking. I really do, because obviously they're 12th, but they are falling like a stone. They are probably in the worst form of most of those teams in and around the relegation zone. For me, where it's really bizarre is that the links are that they're going back to Roy. So that is, by definition, a step backwards to what they tried to move away from. And that's the bit that's making my, me scratch my head, because that's the bit I don't understand, is that you make a decision, you sack a manager. Everyone knows in football, most of the time it's not the manager, it's the players. They've stopped playing for him. They don't like him. There's a rut with some of the players. There's so many exponential reasons for why teams struggle. But the manager always goes because there's only one of him and there's 20-odd players. So it doesn't always work with a root and branch. You can't do that every year either, as well, if you're Palace. I support a team very similar to Palace. Mid-table obscurity is what the bottom level of what is expected of certain teams in the Premier League, with every now and again you flirt with the top 7, you flirt with the top 8, you have a good cup run, you don't go down, you don't look like you're going to ever go down. And it's the Roy thing for me that's really, really making me question the direction of Palace, because I thought they were past this now. This yo-yo club, staying up for a bit, looking good, having a few players, and then, I thought they were established and they were moving forward with a more progressive, younger, dynamic style of manager. And if they go back to a man in his 70s that looks like an owl, You know, it seems like they stepped away from everything to get Patrick Vieira, and it's hit the fan a little bit, and they've just gone safety net. Let's get Roy back, and it doesn't make any sense to me. That's the part that's really, really surprising me.
Yeah, that's it. And that's what it is for me. And this is why I'm feeling like it's a wrong decision, because of what their next step is. If their next step was to be looking at a Ralph Hasenhüttl, a manager like that, and they would have prepared for this, and they would have made sure that they've been in contact with the right progressive managers who support this project that Patrick Vieira began, bringing in younger players, in lowering the age profile from when Roy was in charge, and bringing in players from, European leagues, such as, your Decores, and then bring in your next championship players who are hot prospects, like your Eze's, like your Elise's. I know Eze was there before, but this is what I'm looking at, and that's the direction he was going in. A lot of Crystal Palace fans have said that he hasn't been backed to the way that he should have, and there's no real backing in terms of the profile in certain areas. And that's something that I believe as well, and something that I've been saying on a weekly basis on this show, that they need to give him until the end of the season, ride through this, because they are in danger of getting relegated. So I can understand why the board feel like they need to press that button, but they are, honestly, I don't feel like they would have. I don't feel like they would get relegated, because I just simply believe that there's 3 worse teams than them at this moment. And yes, people will say, yeah, but they went winless for 12 games in a row. All of those 12 games, they've come up against teams that are better than them in that. The last win that they had was against Bournemouth away back in 2022. So they haven't won a game this year. Though that run that they were on was ridiculously hard, and I felt like the run that they're going to face now would have been a real test, and you could have even given him another 2 more games or so, because the one where Crystal Palace fans kind of felt, right, we feel doomed, was when they went to Aston Villa away. But Aston Villa away isn't that easy of a place to go to at this moment in time.
No, not with Emery. Not with Emery,
not with Watkins in form, and not with, they've been able to take on the likes of Manchester United at home, and they've got goals in them. Whereas Palace, that's their weakness. That's their biggest weakness. And it didn't look like the players weren't trying for them. When I watched the game against Manchester City last week, they were really running hard. They were working hard in difficult situations. And it was only, it was not even thankfully for me as an Arsenal fan, but it was only a penalty that was a moment of error and lack of, and madness for Michael Elise to make that decision right there. So yeah, Zaha getting PTSD flashbacks to Roy, exactly. And yeah, it's definitely going to be one for the short term, and they're going to be looking on to rectify this in the summer if Roy can keep them up. And they'll be, I hope that, I don't think it's the right decision, but time will tell now for Crystal Palace. If they stay up in the Premier League, and then they go and hire a progressive manager like a Ralph Hasenhüttl, like a Carlos Corberán, who I really rate. If they were able to nick a Ruben Amorim from a Sporting Lisbon, one of the best young managers in the world right now, and continue that, then we'll be looking at this completely differently, because football's a weird game where things can change ever so quickly, can't it? That as a Wolves fan from how you felt back in December to compare how you're feeling now about your team. So yeah, me and Ed say there, I don't think it's the right decision given the next steps they're making. Yeah. But let's talk about this game now. Arsenal versus Crystal Palace as Newcastle equalise. Ed, hit us with the records and stats for this fixture here.
Yeah, so Arsenal versus Palace, the last 5 meetings doesn't read that badly, really. Well, realistically for either team, with 2 wins for Arsenal, 2 draws, and 1 win there for Palace. Arsenal's form, I did this a couple of days ago, so of course it should technically have that loss in from last night on penalties or draw after 120 minutes, however you want to work it. But realistically, you're looking at the same last 5 games, which is 4 wins and the 1 loss. And for Palace, on the back of 3 draws and 2 losses. And that was the thing I was going to say about the move to Roy. It's not as when Roy comes in, what you think he's going to do, he's going to go to make it difficult for the other opposition to score goals, defend well. They've not exactly been shipping goals either, Palace. So that's another reason why it seems like a strange move. But and as you say there, Paxton, we're diving deep into some of these games because we've got all evening. So, like I said, strap in.
Yeah, exactly that. In terms of the injury news for this game, Arsenal, of course, this is the biggest disappointment for me from last night, even more than going out, was picking up 2 injuries in an area where it's kind of a cluster amount of injuries when you're picking up injuries in one specific area, which is the most annoying part. We've got an injury to Takehiro Tomiyasu. It didn't look good. He was taken off within the first 10 minutes of the game. It was a slip, which definitely looks like a knee injury. Mikel Arteta said Tomiyasu's looks pretty serious from his reaction straight away and what he said to me. Obviously, it's very early and difficult to know. I'm looking at the extent of this could definitely be till the end of the season. Hoping it's not, because we are going to need some rotation at some points. And if we do pick up injuries to Benjamin White, that is a crisis in that area right now, because we don't have another right back, of course, right there. So yeah, Takehiro Tomiyasu not looking good. However, it's looking a bit brighter for William Saliba, as he was taken off due to some discomfort. So it looks like more of a precaution. Well, it wasn't precautionary because Mikel Arteta said he could not carry on, so they had to take him off. But there's no news on that. But the fact that it's a lower back injury due to discomfort eases the thoughts a little bit. And as my thoughts changed in that game, my thoughts about the international break has quickly changed too. I'm happy for that happy for that week now, a week or so break, so that we can hopefully get William Saliba back fit. But look, other news is that Eddie Nketiah is not going to be back until after the international break due to an ankle injury. He's currently still doing some gym work, but he's been in a boot, so hopefully we can get him back post international break. And of course, Mohamed El-Neni, he's the other absentee for Crystal Palace. They've got an injury crisis themselves right now, with Vicente Guaita and Sam Johnston both being out. There's no return date for Guaita on his thigh injury, whereas Sam Johnston could return after the international break from a calf injury. And we saw Joe Whitworth, and you know what? I saw the reaction from his debut for the young 19-year-old goalkeeper, and it sounded like he put in a very solid performance and something that a lot of Palace fans were positive about after, a negative day losing to their rivals in Brighton on Wednesday. But Joe Whitworth, he will be in goal. Massive test for him to come in the situation that Palace are in at the moment, and away from home to the league leaders, the wounded league leaders, who will have a point to prove. Other news, we know that Sambi Lokonga won't play due to ineligible to play his parent club. Will Hughes, James MacArthur, they were both out due to illness. So unless the illness hasn't affected other players, they should return for this one, and it hasn't affected them too badly, so they could return for this game. And we're most likely not going to see the return of Nathan Ferguson yet, maybe until after the international break, but he is improving and he is on his trail. So hopefully we won't see him on this list after the international break right there. But Ed, we'll come to you first on this one. Arsenal versus Crystal Palace. How do you see this game going? New manager bounce for Palace, maybe? Arsenal, are they wounded? Is it going to affect their performance in a negative or positive? How do you see this game unfolding?
No, I think you touched on it earlier. I think that Arsenal this season have proven themselves to be able to bounce back from adversity, from a poor result or a poor performance, sometimes even during a game, such as the Bournemouth game is a good example of that. So no, and Palace have had one shot on target in 3 games, and do I see that getting any better under Roy? With maybe one day, if he is brought in. No, I don't either. I think it might be too early for, curse of the prediction here. I think it's too early for a new manager bounce. I think we revert to type in this game. I've gone for a 2-0 Arsenal win. I think Arsenal at home is also an actual thing now, which it hasn't been in for many, many years. And Palace, they just haven't looked very good. For me, like I said, I think their performances haven't been as bad as the results that you would believe they've got. But also, this is from a Wolves fan, how toothless they look up front is a real concern. And you don't want, as a Palace fan, you don't want to be the team that relies on Zaha again, because we've seen the ceiling of that. And we've seen what that does for Zaha on the pitch as well, when all of a sudden he becomes the sole creative force. The power that man then wields over the rest of the team could be destructive. And obviously I think this is his swan song as well, I'd imagine, with his contract talks and stuff. But I see 2-0 to Arsenal. I think this will be relatively comfortable 2-0 win.
Yeah, maybe if Arsenal go on to win this game, a lot of the Arsenal fans, and we know they'll soon forget about that Europa League performance and our exit, of course, because all eyes will be on the league and the positivity will be back for a lot of Arsenal fans because of us. That will take us 8 points clear. Because City don't play a Premier League game this weekend, and that Arsenal's 8 points clear with City having a game in hands, and City have got to win that. In all fairness, and they've got a tricky fixture congestion coming up towards the end right now. If anyone's going to manage it, you would say City in this league, but it's still points on the board is important. And yeah, Arsenal win, that will be a massive boost and a great shift into our focus for the remainder. I do think we're going to win as well. I'm confident of that, and I'm going to say a 3-1 win. The reason why I see Palace scoring is because at home Arsenal, we haven't been anywhere as defensively solid, and we have given teams opportunities. And I do think that Palace, they were better against Brighton and playing against a team which will be more expansive, and they will clearly set out to try and hit us on the counter. I think they do still have dangerous players like Zaha's, like Elise's and Eze. I'm not sure if all three of them will play, but I think they will be able to cause some problems to Arsenal on the counter-attack, especially without William Saliba in there and going down to Rob Holding, who doesn't suit that style very well. Arsenal need to grab an early goal in this game, really. They need to, because if the longer the game goes on, the game becomes more stretched and there's more pressure and there's more space for Palace to hit in those channels, especially that left channel that they'll be looking at with Zaha up against Rob Holding in that area. I think they could nick something. But yeah, I do think Arsenal will win this one by 3-1 there.
That is a huge downgrade to Rob Holding, isn't it? And that's
absolutely
that's more indicative of Saliba than Holding for me personally. I think Saliba's a Rolls Royce of a centre back on the way to becoming something great, and we know what Rob Holding is. Steady centre back. Everyone will remember him for that FA Cup final.
It's true, man, and now his new hair, his new headband. It was crazy to see that last night. But yeah, that's what I mean by cluster of injuries, bro. Because Tomiyasu's that right centre back for me, who would come in and slot in, and I would feel more confident. Yeah, not to the level of Saliba, because he's been one of the best centre backs in the league, and one of the best performing centre backs in Europe this season. But yeah, it's frustrating that we're going to have to go back to Rob Holding, and he does not suit this system at all. If we're sitting back and trying to sit in our low block, and then we're trying to counter attack, then that suits him a lot more. But when he's got to be the aggressor in the space in behind, it worries me. So I do think we will concede right there. Let's see your predictions in the chat. Pax going with the exact same scoreline as me, saying Arsenal winning by 3-1. Shay's gone for a 3-0 Arsenal win in here as well. Mr. 200 has gone for a 2-0 Arsenal win. Yuvraj has gone for a 2-0 Arsenal win. Says that he thinks differently, that Palace will struggle to score goals. Moss has gone for a 2-0 Arsenal win. Saliba, hope all is good and can play. Trossard and Saka will score for Moss right there. Big up yourself as well, Niall, in the place. Hope you're keeping good. And big up yourself, Ends, man, as well. Hope you're keeping good too. Hope you and Hugo are too, man. And it says, I think Arsenal lose this one. 2-1. Wow. So he thinks this could be the beginning of the end and Arsenal won't be able to bounce back with this one here. That's the first one that we've got in here. And Palace will have that new manager bounce right there. Interesting, but we'll move on into the next game. Before we run through the stats, of course, Manchester City did find out their fate in the Champions League, and it couldn't have been any tougher for them. They will face Pep Guardiola's former side in Bayern Munich, who knocked out PSG, winning by 3-0 in that tie there. And then if, the winner of this tie, Man City or Bayern Munich, will then go on to face either Chelsea or Real Madrid there. So this is definitely the hard side of the draw in this case. And Manchester City are facing Burnley this weekend as well. Ed, what do you think in terms of Manchester City's chances of, going through? Do you think it will be a strain and a test on them for their Premier League season as well?
I think it has to be, right? We know Pep's tendency to tinker. We know Pep's tendency to overthink big games, and it has to be the tie that Arsenal fans would have been praying for, right?
Oh, yeah.
Out of all of those teams, you want Bayern. Give them the machine Bayern. Give them Bayern, and that's what's come through. From a neutral's point of view, that's the matchup I want to see. The way that both teams play, I think it will be an incredible game. Something will have to give. I just clicked while you were talking on Man City's next few weeks, and obviously take away the quarterfinal tomorrow, which we'll touch on shortly in a minute. As soon as April kicks in, they've got Liverpool, then Southampton, then they've got Bayern, all in 10 days. Then they have Man City have Leicester 6 days later. So in 16 days, they have 4 games. In 19 days, they have 5 games, 1 against Liverpool and 2 against Bayern Munich. That's a push to do that, even with Man City's squad, which is maybe not as deep as you think it is when you look at their bench. There's some high numbers on there that you have sometimes scratch your head and think, will Cole Palmer really be able to do a job? Rico Lewis looked like he was the man for a while, but he hasn't played again for a bit. Yeah, so there's a lot of tinkering. There's a lot of time. And I've said this phrase all the way through the season. There's a lot of chances in those fixtures for a Man City blink. And right now, juggling all of those things, does Pep need to do the opposite to Arteta? And do the eggs go into the Champions League basket to get that monkey off their back of they always bottle it under Pep, which I think is a thing that Paxton put in the chat a lot earlier. Maybe Man City seed the league a little bit, as much as Man City can, to put more into the Champions League, because let's not forget, we don't know where their season's going to go next season with the potential bans and everything else in place. Is this their last chance to win something in Europe if bans and or other sanctions come into place that really hamper them? Is this their chance? Like it's Arsenal's chance right now. Man City beat Bayern Munich. That's the second favourite out of the running. And I would back Man City to beat this Real Madrid team or Chelsea if they get past Bayern.
It's true. And the reason why I think it will be taking a toll on Man City is because in the recent weeks when I've been impressed with them, and you've heard me say on this channel, for those who've listened, is for a while, is that I think Man City are entering and are finding their best form. I think that's because they found their best team, their best starting 11. And what's Pep's done is he's struggled to find that defensive stability. So he slapped in 4 centre-backs.
He's gone full Pulis, right?
Exactly that in that sense. 4 centre-backs. John Stones as the right back. You've got Ake and the left back, and then Akanji and Diaz at the centre-back in the centre-back positions. 4 across the back, trying to bring that physicality, that height, and that defensive awareness in there. With the midfield, Rodri plays almost every single game, and then that midfield hasn't really changed that much recently. Maybe with the odd changes with De Bruyne and Bernardo swapping a little bit, but it's mainly staying with Rodri, Gundogan, Grealish out on that left. Foden has started on the right. Mahrez hasn't played too many games, and Haaland up top. So this is it. Like, this is, we think of Manchester City and we think, yeah, they wrote, Pep tinkers a lot in terms of his rotation. And he will make that rotation, and City just remain at such a high level. They don't do that anymore. They don't keep that level when they do rotate, and he's going to have to prioritize in this sense. And I think because of so much pressure on that Champions League and the teams that they're coming up against, if they do make it through, they're going to have to prioritize that, and we'll see the tinkering in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's what I meant when I said tinkering.
Yeah, that's where we'll see the tinkering. That's where you might see not necessarily a Calvin Phillips, because he doesn't seem to have trusted him this season, but you'll see a Laporte come in, you'll see a Rico Lewis come in, a Carl Walker. They're not bad players at all, don't get me wrong, but they haven't been as cohesive or as being at the level that they previously were with these types of players. You'll see a Mahrez come in, and then there will be some tinkering around and some changing, which has affected them and has affected their results this season too. So it will be interesting to see how they manage their way. I'm hoping and praying they get past Bayern Munich, and then whatever happens in the semi-final can happen, because they'd have to play those games. I don't want them to win it, because that'll be another team that will, Arsenal, another set of fans that will be talking to me about European heritage and so what. But yeah, it will. I do think it'll be a real test, and this is the best opportunity that Arsenal have to get a Premier League title with this level of fixtures that Man City will play for this one here. So yeah, it will be interesting, guys. Let's see what your comments are saying before we get into the game. A proper football club like Bayern playing Qatari, these are Abu Dhabi state-owned cheaters. Should be a belter, says Luke there. What else we got in here? We've got guys are getting their predictions in. We'll have a look on that. Luke says, I expect City to win every Premier League game from now on. That means we must have to win 10 out of our 11. We can't even to a draw one game. Luke, shoot me down if they are not winning all of their Premier League games. Ed, you don't think so as well?
No. Teams don't. No. Even the greatest teams don't, do they really? There's only Nottingham Forest in the 80s when they went unbeaten, and then obviously the Arsenal Invincibles. It happens once every 30 years for a reason. And we've seen this Man City team, like I'm going to keep saying it, they've blinked more than Arsenal this year so far. We don't have to go that far back, almost a month, to when they drew against Nottingham Forest. Do you know what I mean? I don't see them winning out, and I don't see them winning out with that 20 days in April that I've just talked about, with 6 games, 2 of them against Bayern, 1 against Liverpool, and Liverpool are desperate to get something out of their own season as well. They're back in the Arsene Wenger meme, 4th is a trophy race right now, aren't they? That they need something to justify their existence at the minute, and Brighton are not going to be easy when they come out of it. Then obviously they come against Arsenal yourselves at the end of April. So I just don't see them winning out. And if they do, then hats off. Do you know what I mean? If you win 11 out of 11 in the Premier League, what more can you do?
Exactly. Yeah, if they do that with the fixtures that they have and they go on to either deep in the Champions League, that would be crazy. You'd have to give them credit for that there. But City do this every season. They win all their remaining games. They didn't even do it last season, bro. They drew to West Ham. Do you remember that 2-2 draw in that one there? It's just Liverpool weren't able to capitalise when they did drop them points, because I remember Liverpool drawing to Spurs close to that weekend. So, and with us, I think it's even more difficult for them to do so, with it having not as many players in the squad, not as secure at the back, not controlling games to the level that they did previously. Not saying they're a worse team, but
they're going to be playing against teams. There's going to be no team really this year that are going to be in that comfortable 9th place, we're safe kind of place right now. 12 down are all in trouble. Brighton, Fulham are all pushing for Europe that no one really saw coming Moss, I know you said Fulham were going to do well, so don't jump in on that. They've got Leicester, Southampton, all fighting for relegation. Leeds, Everton, all fighting for the only game, the last game of the season. Brentford will probably be comfortably 9th or 8th. Know where they're going to be. That last game of the season might be a relatively easy finish for them, but the rest of the other games all seem like there's something on them.
Especially that Brighton one. Wherever they put that Brighton fixture, with how this Brighton team, we'll talk about them, of course, as well. Yeah, but we were quite fortunate when we faced Brighton because they had no McAllister or Caicedo. I think they will raise the level. But we'll get into this one here. Manchester City versus Burnley. Ed, hit us with the records and stats for this one here, those last 5 meetings. I knew it.
Yeah, for the FA Cup games, because we've got some random teams, I've only done the last 5 meetings.
Oh, okay.
So 5 out of 5 for Man City against Burnley. And I think from doing my research, I don't think they've beaten them since 2012 or something like that. So I think they've been unbeaten for a good 10, 11 runs.
Yeah, exactly that. In terms of injury news for Man City, they've got literally no injury news at this moment in time, unless Pep Guardiola's come out and said something after the half-10 embargo in this section here. But yeah, no injury news at all for Manchester City. They've got a fully fit squad, fully available with no suspensions as well. So yeah, that's a big plus for them right there. And I don't really have too much injury news for Burnley, but I just want to talk to you guys about some of their key players, because they've had a fantastic season under Vincent Kompany and his return there, and some of the players to look out for sure, because they have been performing really well. And they've got a few former Manchester City players, of course. You know, one of them, Taylor Harwood-Bellis, he's not going to be able to play. He's injured, as well as Josh Brownhill. So I've given you some injury news there. But Anas Zaroury, he's been a real talent this season, and he's someone to watch when they do get promoted. Of course they will, when he comes into the Premier League. Left side player, very tricky. Capable of using both feet. He will be interesting to watch next season for sure. They do have some interesting players there, and he's the one that I would say to look out for. They've got Vitinho. Who would have thought that Brazilians would be playing in Burnley, for goodness sakes? They're right back. He's got 3 goals this season at right back, and Ian Maatsen with 4 goals and 5 assists from left back, the Chelsea loanee. So yeah, he's one of the hundreds of players that Chelsea have out at the moment, and he's done really well out there. So those are the 3 players I'd say to look out for: Ian Maatsen, with Zaroury, and Vitinho as well. Those are big players right there for Burnley, and that could cause them some problems. But in terms of this Man City versus Burnley game, I'm going to go with a Man City win. You guys in the comments, we'll get into them with the predictions. I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think it's going to be that much of a battering, because I do think City will rotate after their game in midweek and trying to give some players a few minutes. Well, they might not, because there is an international break, but I think he's going to try and manage it and rotate the side a little bit. I think City's still going to win, but I don't think it's going to be a battering to what some guys are saying right here. I do think City are going to win by 3-1. I do think Burnley will manage to score a goal, but I don't think it's going to be like 4s or 5s or something like that. I don't see that. What's your prediction, bro? For this
my smirk was because I've said 3-1-2.
Oh, have you? Oh, yeah. Fair enough.
3-1 similar. I've given Burnley a goal because I think the way Kompany has... I haven't watched much of the Championship because, unlike most of my life, Wolves have, until this season, hadn't been flirting with it for the last 4 or 5 years. So every now and again I've checked in. And this Burnley team aren't the Burnley team that Sean Dyche left, let's put it that way. I've given them a goal based on some of the players you've talked about, and obviously Teller's playing very well for them as well as a striker, isn't he, as well? So, but this Man City team, regardless of rotation, should have enough to beat a Championship team.
Yeah, there you go.
At home.
Yeah, they will do. It's favourable at home, but they always manage to beat Burnley anyway. Yeah. And with Burnley, they don't set up in that same Sean Dyche way anymore. So it's not the floodgates, I can't imagine, will open, but I may be wrong. We'll have to wait and see. But I do think City relatively comfortably make it through in this one here. Amy says she's going for the Burnley upset with this one here. Endsman says that Man City will smoke them. Oh, yeah, there you go. He's gone for it. I think he went for a 6-2 victory as well. So goals in that one. Paxton's gone for a tight one, saying 2-1 Manchester City. Company just missing out on the bittersweet victory. Peeny's gone for a 6-0 Burnley right there. Matt Shea's gone for a 3-1 Manchester City. Luke's gone for a 3-1 Manchester City 2. They will have too much for them, but I love the football company players. Yeah, what transition he's made there. Do you have any quick words to say on Vincent Kompany and what a job he's done? And are you looking forward to him managing the Prem next season, bro?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching him managing the Premier League, watching him change the philosophy that was so successful for Sean Dyche as well. It's not to denigrate the job he did, because the best thing about British football is that we can have teams that play different styles. And Burnley stayed in the Premier League playing their own version of sort of
Europe.
Yeah, true. Playing their own style of very brash, long passes, direct football, and that's why it's so great. And companies are just. He seems like, I hope he's not going to be one of those in 3 or 4 years turns out to be a rotter, because he seems like such a lovely bloke as well. He seems very, very down to earth, very switched on. And it will be, without trying to get too deep, it will be good for a black manager to do well in the Premier League.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. It's true. Let's hope he doesn't have a second season like a Vieira ending that way.
Exactly.
For him as well. Moss has had a 2-1 City. Company will give the former cheating company of City a good hard run there. Yeah, I do think it will be a good game. It will be an interesting one to watch. I don't know if I'll be watching it though. City will win by 3-0, says Mr. 200 there. And we have got other games on at that time as well, indeed. And big up yourself, Mohammed. Thanks for tuning in, my bro. I hope you'll keep it all good as well and keeping safe as well. So we'll move on now into the next game, which is on. There will be coinciding. This one starts 15 minutes earlier. It is Chelsea against Everton. Before we talk about the fixture in this here, we'll talk about, Chelsea. They made it through and they're facing Real Madrid. We touched on it a little bit earlier. But Ed, third time in a row now, I think, that Chelsea and Real Madrid are facing each other in the Champions League. I don't know, man. I feel Chelsea could have hurt them.
Are you backing Potter? Are you backing your boy Potter?
Yeah, maybe it's my Potter tinted glasses in this sense. I'm hoping Real Madrid do the thing. Hope they do the right thing. But how do you see this one for Chelsea? It's a nightmare draw that they've got.
Yeah.
But how do you think they could? Do you think there is a possibility?
Well, there's always a possibility, and Chelsea, I wouldn't say they've turned the corner, but they can see it now. If you know what I mean. I think we're starting to see Potter's picking similar teams now. He's not sort of picking and choosing different 11s all the time, and the experiment of Sterling at left wing back and things like that have sort of stopped now, because he's starting to realise that he has maybe better players at his disposal than he's ever had before, and maybe he needs to get the best out of them in their positions that they should be in. But Real Madrid in Europe they are serial winners for a reason. They turn it on, don't they? We saw them demolish Liverpool a few weeks ago in a game which looked end to end for a bit, and then all of a sudden Real Madrid, just like the year 11 against the year 7, right? You've had your fun now. Give me the ball. I'm going to score all the goals. And Real Madrid always have that, and with their manager as well, who's so savvy. Potter obviously never done Europe before. It's going to be a new thing for him as well. Maybe a little bit, dare I say, starstruck. Maybe going to the Bernabeu as well. We've got a lot of things for managers to deal with and manage. So I would back Real Madrid, but I think Chelsea, this current iteration of Chelsea, like I say, where the corner's not been turned, but it's definitely in sight now, will probably give them much more of a game than they would have done even a month ago.
Yeah, definitely with the confidence that building there and with him finding his best team and best starting 11 there as well. So if they do manage to keep players fit and their key players like your Cucurella's and Chilwell's, because he does tend to play with both of them and Reece James, they do have the players to cause Real Madrid some
Yeah,
problems, I do think. And the thing with Chelsea is they have more defensive stability than Liverpool. They don't concede as many goals, even when they were going. They've turned a corner at this moment in time. We'll see if it might be a full storm. But even through their worst moments, they didn't concede too many. Their problem was scoring, and I do think Real Madrid allow team like if they allow chances against them with the players that they've got in there. And Mudryk, he had a great performance there. I think the pace in behind up against Carvajal will cause them problems. João Felix will have a point to prove. Enzo Fernandez, what a midfielder. He could easily be playing for Real Madrid, and he could be the replacement, the long-term future replacement for you like Kroos and Modric in there. Real Madrid are definitely the favourites with their pedigree and the heritage that they have. But I don't know, man. It will be a very interesting tie to watch. I do think they have.
It's why we love the Champions League. As soon as we get to the quarterfinal stage, in the main, the chaff's gone, hasn't it? Now we're just dealing with these ties are lip smacking. These are ties where you go, maybe I will make sure at least have it on in the background and tune in if it turns into something.
Yeah, see, Moss, Real Madrid easy. I disagree. I don't think it's going to be easy. I don't think it is. When Real Madrid, the winners last year, they didn't make any game easy that they had. So yeah, I feel like Chelsea will be able to set up in their pragmatic way and cause them problems in that sense. I do think they were the better team over the tie against Dortmund, and Dortmund on a bad side themselves. Moss says Madrid versus Bayern, he thinks in the semi-final, and then Napoli versus Benfica. I hope that you're wrong. I hope Man City make it through just so that they can, play more games. But yeah, those are some cracking ties that we got there. And Napoli, we would say, are the favourites to make it to the final. Would you say from that side?
On that side, in the form they're in as well, I think if you haven't checked out how far ahead they are in Serie A, you will blink and you miss it, especially if you're someone of my era and you think that Napoli are always the cool team in the light blue shirts, but they don't really win anything. And they had Maradona once, but it's not Juve, it's not Inter, it's not AC Milan up there. It's Napoli, and it's Napoli by about 20 points. Is it 18 points? It's something ridiculous.
Yeah, crazy amount. Bargav says best Champions League in years. In terms of its openness and who can win it, absolutely. This is probably the most open I've seen it. Benfica are a very good side as well. Gonzalo Ramos up there. They lost Enzo Fernandez, of course, but João Mario's in the form of his life. They've got great talents like Antonio Silva at the back, and they always have players coming through their illustrious academy that they have. So yeah, Benfica very, very good, and they survived 2 groups of death in the last 2 years. Finished on top and finished above PSG. But we'll talk about Chelsea versus Everton now. Ed, hit us with the records and stats for this fixture here.
So the last 5 meetings shows us 2 wins each, with a draw in the middle of it. Chelsea's form, as T and I were talking about, maybe that corner has been turned with 3 wins on the bounce. And Everton with, of course, a huge win last week against Brentford, was it? 1-0? It was against someone anyway, and they won. Huge 3 points there, bringing themselves slightly out. Was it Leeds? Was it?
Home.
No, that was Brighton.
Who?
That was Brighton played Leeds, right? Well, I should have done this beforehand.
Yeah.
But anyway, whoever it is, they won last week, and it was
Brentford, Everton, Brentford. Yes,
it was Brentford. Yeah, so 2 wins in the last 5 with 3 losses.
There you go, right there. And for the injury news for Chelsea, there is a lot of players on that injury table right now. Thiago Silva won't return until after the international break, maybe 2 weeks or so after that. So they will miss him for the first leg of that Champions League tie. That could be a huge miss. Azpilicueta, he could return after the international break as well, with Mason Mount for Chelsea and Raheem Sterling. We're both chosen for England. I know I'm wearing the England shirt, I
Say it
saw a
again.
few of the
Say it
players.
again. Say it again. Who?
Mount and Sterling. Well, Mount and Sterling chose.
I don't think so. But I'll while you do the rest, I'll have a look at the England squad.
It's 2-1 Newcastle as well, by the way. But yeah, they're not going to return for Chelsea until after the international break. Reece James missed it through illness, so he could return for this one here. Most likely will do. And Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang has been out with a lower back injury, but he will return as well. And we may see N'Golo Kante return, and this will be a massive plus for Chelsea if they can keep him fit and get him featuring in some of the final games of the season there. But yeah, and Kante, we may see him in the squad right here. But yeah, have you got the England team?
Yeah, so Mason Mount and Conor Gallagher are in from Chelsea because Conor Gallagher plays every week.
Just quickly on that, sorry, that England team. I'm
starting to feel that this is just it's come to the end of a line now with Southgate, and maybe I was wrong a few months ago because he hasn't stuck to his picking people in form. The only player that's in form that hasn't really made it before is Ivan Toney. We've still got Jordan Henderson, who's not at the right end of his career. Conor Gallagher. We've got Calvin Phillips, bless him, who I love, think he's great, but he's not playing. We've got Ivan Toney's the only player he's brought in that looks like he's someone in form that he's brought in. And cynical part of me thinks he's been brought in to give a cap now so he can't go off and play for Jamaica. Who desperately want him to join before the 48-team World Cup, when more than likely more of the Caribbean teams will make it in because of who's hosting it. Eric Dyer,
Maguire,
Harry Maguire doesn't.
This is, bro. The play. This is it. I did mind it, and this is why I was defending it for its European tournament. And that's literally just coming up. Pick the players that you trust that have done that, this and that, but not when we haven't got a European tournament coming up. This is where you're meant to be experimenting and picking the players who deserve it based on what they've done for their club. This is what you're meant to be doing. I want to be seeing Balogun in there. Do you know what I mean? Like what he's been doing in Europe. Give Tomori a run. Find out if you can trust these players. Find out where they are. Experiment, for goodness sakes. Why are you picking your tried and trusted players when the tournament's not even here? You've got to find it out. I don't mind him picking them for tournaments. If this was a preparing for the World Cup, I'm defending him because I'm like, he hasn't got too much time to be trying and testing around, guys. That's what I'd say. But he has got the time, and he's picking all the wrong players that simply aren't playing right now. And how is that? How is this based on meritocracy? How will and Ivan Toney was in the last squad, so there's no one different from the last squad. He wasn't in the World Cup one, but the one previous to that. Pick players. This is what I want to see. First caps. I want to see players getting their chance, but nah, not right at all. We're going to lose quite a bit of talent if he doesn't sort his game out. But Balogun's got USA and Nigeria after him. Tomori, I'm sure he could still make the switch. I'm sure.
As long as he hasn't played a competitive game, yes, he can.
We're going to be missing out on talent. Do you know what I mean? So I'd be, this is it, and I'm not liking it. But Chelsea versus Everton and this game here. What's your thoughts and prediction on this fixture?
I think it's always difficult for me at the minute to pick a team that are down the bottom with my side. Chelsea at home, I do think they'll have too much for this Everton team, but under Sean Dyche, they are, pick all the Dyche cliches you want, more organised, better at the back, solid. Dwight McNeil looks good all of a sudden again and all those kind of things. So I think Chelsea will have too much for Everton in this game. We saw Chelsea last week score some great goals. That Kovacic goal was incredible. So I'm going to go 2-0 to Chelsea in this game. I don't see Everton getting anything out of this game.
Yeah, I don't see him scoring in this game. Do you say 2-0? That's the one that I was going to go for as well. To make it different, I'm going to say 1-0. 1-0, actually. Yeah, 1-0 into it. Everton, they scored in the first minute. Was it against Brentford?
Yeah,
On the
very,
weekend,
very
as you
early
said?
in.
Very early. Didn't look like scoring throughout. They faded a little bit too. Matt, I'm sure as an Everton fan will feel differently, and those who do support Everton will be looking at their team and thinking it different. Big up yourself, Wilf, in the place. Hey, rest up, man. Listen to the Tariq Talks preview show. We're an hour and 20 in, but we're only like 3 games in. So don't worry. Get strapped in, and hopefully this will relax you. And we spoke about Arsenal, so that shouldn't get your heart rate going. I'm still a bit and ahhing on Everton and their safety too, by the way. I know they won against Brentford. That was massive. I didn't predict that. I don't think did. You predict an Everton win either?
No, I think I predicted to draw.
When I was looking at it, beyond that opening goal, Brentford were the better team and had more control, and they'll be disappointed for not getting anything out of that game. I still think they're in danger. They just don't score enough goals, and you can't rely on Calvert-Lewin. And when you don't score enough goals, that's the issue. That's why I feel like Bournemouth could make a run out of it, because they do score goals and they have those goal match winners in there. And when it is going to be those tight games in those relegation 6-pointers, you need goals. That will keep you up, essentially. Yes, defenses can do, but the goals in that sense will. That's how Leeds managed to stay up last season, because they scored enough and they were able to. And that's why Burnley went down, because they simply didn't score enough. Yeah. They didn't concede too many, but they just couldn't score much at all. So yeah, I'm worried for them, but I've gone 1-0 to Chelsea in this one here. Let us have a look at your predictions that we got here. We haven't got too many for this one. Moss says, think I had 2-0 Chelsea, Felix with the goal and Havertz. And Paxton's gone for a 2-2 draw. That would be a massive result for Everton.
Huge point for Everton if that comes off.
Huge. Yeah, exactly. I know Moss and Ed nearly had the correct score already. He's still on for this correct score. He said 2-1. It's looking like a masterstroke. My prediction was out the window about for 10 minutes after I said it when Dennis scored. So yeah, Ed's is still on. So I'm hoping that it can remain 1-1 for him there. Let's move on now into the next fixture. It's back to the FA Cup, and it is the Manchester United versus Fulham on Sunday. But before we talk about the Manchester United versus Fulham, like we have done for a lot of these games, talk about Manchester United going through against Betis, and they will be facing Sevilla in the Europa League as well. I do expect them to go through. You do as well, bro, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But whoever their next opponents, their semi-final opponents, if they go through, as we expect them to, will either be Juventus or Sporting, their foot club, the Sporting. Let's just call them that. Let's remain on the right side. It is tough, and they are competing across all fronts. How do you think this? They are the favourites for me now to win the Europa League. Ed, how do you think? Do you think they will win it? Do you think they have a massive opportunity to, or do you think this will hinder them as well in their top 4 battle with the amount of fixtures that they're going to have played by then as well?
I think the fixture congestion that's hit them already, I think, is definitely something that will be of concern to Ten Hag. I hadn't considered until I heard it the other day on a podcast that one journalist I was listening to was making the point that he felt that the 7-0, and Paxton, I'm not bringing that up to dig you out, the 7-0, was it an anomaly because they played 5 games in 11 days, and were they just shattered, which is why their heads went, why they were blowing after 25 minutes and all those kind of things. And that is what we need to think about when we look at another long run in an FA Cup if they beat Fulham, in a Europa League if they get past Sevilla. Now, Sevilla, it's not a gimme. We know how good they can be in the in this competition, but I do expect them to go through. There's a lot of games to play, and that top part of the league is still very, very, very congested. Tottenham are still there unbelievably. Newcastle, Liverpool, Brighton, all within, shouting distance of getting back on level terms. So that is going to take some rotation. Maybe it'll be that, the first leg, Ten Hag maybe tries to get 2 goals clear and rotate in the second leg. That kind of sort of football manager type approach that you can have to some of these games, where you can all of a sudden try and play a player for only half an hour towards the end of the game to see it out, those types of things. But it's going to be something I have to think about, because Man United are playing an awful lot of games. They've obviously played every game in the League Cup they could have. They're in the FA Cup quarter-finals. They've played 26 games in the league. They've played in the Europa League all the way through and played pretty strong teams all the way through as well. So it's definitely going to need some juggling. We've said consistently all year they're about a year ahead of where we thought they were going to be, and we'll see here, I guess, the proof in the pudding of how far ahead of schedule they are in terms of being able to, as Paxton talked about with Arsenal earlier, fighting on all the different fronts, because that is something Man United are doing well this year, and that is something you do have to, tip your cap to, because I know they're third and quite far away, but I reckon a lot of Man United fans wouldn't have had them third in this season at the start of the season. So to already have a cup win, to be in the quarterfinals of the oldest cup competition, and to be where they are now in the Europa League, as well as being third in the league, it has the makings of being one hell of a season.
If they win another competition and finish in the top 4, whether it is the FA Cup or the Europa League, one of them, Europa League, you'd say is more prestigious because it's on a European trophy. But if they manage to do that, what a season this has been for them, because, Erik Ten Hag's first season with the difficulties that he's had to manage, that would be tremendous to do that and manage all those competitions. And, you know what I mean? Like, yes, in the cup games, in the domestic ones, they have had favourable draws. I think they've all been at home as well. But the Europa League hasn't been the most favourable. They had Barcelona in the first one, Betis, that was, but coming up against Sevilla, a difficult-ish side. They should still be beating, who aren't performing as well, but they've got European history and pedigree. And then either Sporting or Juventus. And if Sporting manage to knock out Juventus, then they're a certain threat. Looking at it, and I've seen them. That was one of the. I think that was the best performance I've seen any team have at the Emirates this last night. So credit to them in that sense. So yeah, if Man United they do that, it will be an amazing season for Ten Hag. Tremendous. I don't know though, man. I think in a season of all seasons where we've had a World Cup in the middle of it. This is guessing. This is me preempting. I think the injuries are starting to pile up, and I can only see them getting worse. Erik Ten Hag played a strong side yesterday. And I thought with a game where they've already won it, they could afford to lose, but he doesn't want to. And as Paxton will say, with that winning mentality, I don't think his depth is poor. It's not great. Like, it's not great depth. But, you got Sancho, who's not played many games. He could knock him out for a month, a couple of months or something. And, that's a £73 million winger right there. Anthony rotating. And then, it's not poor depth, but it's not great. It's not all players that Ten Hag will trust. But, yeah, man, we'll see at the end of it. All I'm going to say is we will see. We will see, because the injuries are starting to come now, and there is a lot of minutes in the tank for a lot of these players. I think that Ten Hag is doing it on, but he knows what he's doing. I'm not saying he's been naive. I think he knows what he's doing. He's showing the players that no, if you're playing for a club like Man United, we have to compete on all fronts. You have to be there. You have to be willing. And he's also showing the board, I don't trust this player. I can't play him in these games. You have to bring me someone else. He's not stupid. Even if the players do break down and it doesn't end as good, and you don't manage to win the other trophies and you just scrape top 4, he knows what he's doing. He's setting things up for the next phase of the project. So I I like Ten Hag, even though the comment he made the other day was wrong and it was incorrect factually. Don't matter. I like how he's honest and how he looks at this Man United team. And yeah, there's a strategy to this. There's a method to the madness. Do you agree, bro?
Yeah, definitely. He's different. He's different. The Premier League's a coaches' league, right? That's why all the best coaches. Flipping, Julian Lopetegui's my manager at a team that are 13th in the Premier League. That says if you need anything to tell you about the coaches' league that the Premier League is, where the best coaches in the world want to come apply their trade. You've got someone who's managed Real Madrid that's won European Cups. At my little club in Wolverhampton, that's mental. It's mental. So that's all you need to know. Ten Hag he's an elite. He was elite at Ajax, and he's brought that mentality with him. And we don't need to talk again about how he handled the Ronaldo debacle and everything else since then. He's picked up a cup, and how important was that FA Cup for Arteta at the start of his tenure? Season. And that's important. It's important to have that winning mentality. And whether it's this board now or whoever buys Man United, you're right. You're spot on with him saying that, I can't play this player off the bench because my squad depth is not good enough. I'm going to have to play these players into the ground. I need you to back me. If you want people to keep coming through those doors and people all around the world to buy a Sancho 25 shirt, even though he doesn't really play for them at the minute, then we need that better squad. So he's not done.
Exactly. And let's go into the fixture of this one here. Man United versus Fulham. It's an interesting one. Ed, hit us with the records and stats for this one, please, man.
Yeah, so Man United versus Fulham. The last time Fulham beat them was in 2016, I believe. And the last 5 meetings have been 4 wins and a draw for Man United.
And then 4 injuries, suspension. We know with Casemiro, this is the first of his 4 games that he will be missing.
I didn't know it was 4. Oof.
Yeah, 4 because it's his second red of the season.
Okay.
So for his 3rd suspension of the season. So that's mass. 3 suspensions for someone who never got a red card in his time at Real Madrid is crazy. They will not have no Eriksen, no Van der Beek, no Martial for this one, or Alejandro Garnacho. We may see Anthony return, who has been suffering with a fever, though. He should return for this game here up against Fulham. And for Fulham, who had players missing due to injury and suspension, with João Palhinha, he will return for this one. Massive plus for them. Willian should return also, which is another boost for the West London side, and Cedric Suarez should be there to provide some depth in that right back position. And in other players, we won't see live in Kazawa, who I think is out for the rest of the season. I think. Well, there's no return date on him with that at the moment, but he's got an MCL injury. And Tom Kearney will be out also, as well as Neeskens Cabano. But yeah, so good, massive boost there for Fulham. And the reason I say, whoa. Wrongful red card. Bro, Pax, that's a red card. Ed, do you think that's a red card for what Casemiro's done?
I don't know. No. I'm on the fence with that one.
I'm sorry. He's gone over the top. Do you know why it's a red card? Because I've seen other people talking about other incidences where they're not given as red cards. Where, in the Pereira against Leicester, against Chelsea, when he went over the top of the ball also. If you're the referees, why they decide it's a red card? In the law of excessive force with that one, it's a potential leg breaker. He's sliding. That means if he's sliding, he's out of control. You've seen other ones where they go over the top of the ball, but they're not sliding. They're stretching their leg out, but they're not applying excessive force. And that's why some of them don't get given as red cards. Whereas this one, for me, it's a red card all day long, all day. And I think it's a stonewall. It's what makes it. I'm interested to hear from you as well, Pax and Ed. Why do you not? What's planting that seed of doubt?
I think it's the deflection of his foot off the ball that makes me feel like it wasn't necessarily supposed to be that high, his challenge. When he hits the ball and it goes up a little bit, And the letter of the law, it's a red card, right? That's why it's clear and obvious, and VAR told him you need to look at it. But I just, without trying to say the game's going soft, I feel like that's a little bit of it's a red card by the letter of the law, but I just feel there's a degree of separation between intent and what's happened there with the way he's gone in to try and get the ball and how he sort of deflected his own leg off the ball and he's gone a bit higher than he wanted to. It's a red card. I feel like if that was a Wolves player and it was my team, I'm thinking, come on, it's a little bit wishy-washy for me, that one. But the letter of the law says it's a red card. I'm fully aware of it. I just think if it had been given a red card straight away, then I can see why. But without trying to bring out all the old tropes, you slow stuff down, everything looks awful. So I think that does add to it, but it's a red card, but it's a bit. I just feel like that's it. The intent wasn't there, but I understand. I understand your point about it's the control, and it's the lack of control over it. I get that.
I don't think he intends that, and there's no way to measure intent. But excessive control, the fact that his ball, the foot has gone over the top of the ball, shows that he's out of control of it because he's gone to win the ball. He's got a little bit of it, but then his studs have then followed on and caught Alcaraz on the shin. If that happens to a man, I saw that Man United fans were calling for Walker Peters to get a red card for his tackle on Garnacho when he is nowhere near at the height of it. He's sliding, he's gone for the ball, and they was calling for red cards there. We've seen plenty. I'm going to say this, and I know this as an Arsenal fan. If Granit Xhaka does that, he's in prison right now for GBH because I remember last season when he made that tackle against Cancelo, everyone and their dog was telling me that's a red card where he's gone above it, he's gone at a certain height, and he won the ball cleanly. And João Cancelo actually dived over it, but because of the height of the challenge, because it's dangerous, it is a red card in that sense. So for me, red card in today's game, especially all day long. So but he's out. I don't think you can complain about any of the red cards. In all fairness, it's a challenge he didn't need to make either.
That is true. That is true.
In a position where he didn't need to make it, it's one of them ones. If you're sliding and you're out like that, it's gonna be. I saw. I've seen red cards nowadays. I've seen a crazy amount of them. Like that are stupid anyway.
I think it's one of those orange cards, isn't it? I think it could have gone either way. Honestly, I feel like I think we all need to watch it again together because I don't feel like that is. I think it's a stonewaller of a red card. I honestly do. Do you know whose fault this is? This is all Gary Lineker's fault because match of the day haven't told me what it was.
yeah, it's true. Let's get. So in terms of this game, the reason why I think it is so interesting. Man United, off the back of playing a few games and they won against Real Betis and they've done well there. They've still got to bounce back against that from that Liverpool one. I do believe they didn't beat Southampton, which is poor in all honesty. At home against Southampton, who are bottom of the league, not to win that one there. Missing Casemiro, who's a massive player for this team. When the last time they played Fulham, it was a last-minute winner from Garnacho. I think this one will be an interesting game, and I won't be surprised if Fulham win. And I'm going to back it. I'm going to go for a Fulham win. I'm going for a 2-1 Fulham win in this game. I do think they might be able to nick something here in that sense. What's your thoughts, bro?
1-0 Fulham.
You've gone for a Fulham win as well. What's your reasoning for backing Fulham to win this one?
Casemiro missing. And João Palhinha is a Man United caliber central midfielder playing for Fulham, in my opinion. And the amount of games that we talked about that Man United have got to play, this might be one of the games that is a give, where they go, what do they call it? NBA schedule loss. Yeah. When all of a sudden it's one of those games that you decide we got to the quarterfinals, we'll try our best. If it doesn't happen, we've won a cup. We're going for top 4. We're still in Europe. It screams schedule loss to me.
Yeah, there you go, right there. I hear that, and I do think it could be a problem for them in this one as well. Wow, it will be an interesting one. And Paxton doesn't think the Palace one was he's put 2 hands around someone's neck. Like, that is a red card. 2 hands. Come on. But yeah. Luke says, look at what they give for pens, though, Tariq. If an attacker brushes a defender's leg, they give... Bro, this is what I'm... In today's game, when I saw Martinelli's goal ruled out at Old Trafford for a foul, come on, if that's a foul, then, bro, it's crazy. We've seen it. We know what the game is today. We know how soft there is. We saw some ridiculous challenges being put in yesterday in the Arsenal game, and that referee is trash, by the way. He was the one he was the referee for the Netherlands-Argentina semi-final, and he got demoted. He was a Champions League referee once upon a time, but now he's refereeing in the Europa League because of how poor he is. Yeah, shocking. You can remember it. You can. I've been here, and I'm even when it's against Arsenal, I still don't think certain challenges are red cards, or this should be a red card, or whatnot. So yeah, it's no bias involved when he talks about this, because Ed, you've heard me. I've had people go mad at me for certain things. I remember the Tomiyasu Godfrey one. Everyone said that was crazy. I didn't think that was a red card. Martinelli, when I thought that one was a red card against Wolves, and everyone went crazy at me for that one as well. Hey, I just think those were definitely red cards.
I wonder if Paxton Senny's remembering this because we're back in Fulham.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Putting 2 hands around the guy's neck. Look at the full footage. Any form of... You can't put your hands around someone's neck or put them anywhere near their face. You can't put 1 hand anywhere near him. But put 2. Come on. You know what he's doing there. He knows he lost it as well, because he tried to give him the little tap afterwards and play it all friendly. He knows he lost his head. Penalty to Newcastle. Wow. But let's move on now into the next game. And the next game that we do have here is... which one is it, bro?
Bear with me. It is Southampton versus Spurs.
Oh, Southampton versus Spurs. This is now where we're going to get into it. We're going to fly through these a little bit more. There isn't as many topics because Spurs aren't in Europe anymore either, and they weren't in for the last fixture. But yeah, Ed, hit us with the records and stats for this one here.
Yeah, so the last 5 meetings you can see down there is 1 win for Southampton, 1 draw, and 3 wins for Spurs. Spurs on the back of that draw that we talked about last week to Man United, but do have 3 losses and just a 1 win in the last 5. And Spurs up and down, 3 wins, 2 losses in the last 5 games.
In terms of the injuries front for the Saints, what we have right here is that Maitland-Niles, he could return for this game. He did miss did he play in the Manchester United one? I'm not too sure, but yeah, he'll be he might be fit and available for this one, as well as Kyle Walker-Peters, who had picked up a thigh injury in midweek against Brentford, but yeah, he could return for this one here, as well as Juan Larios, who is out, and Valentino Livramento. So some fullback problems right there for Southampton with all those injuries there. And for Spurs, what we do know, and what we've known for a while, is that Yves Bissouma, Hugo Lloris, Ryan Sessegnon will all return after the international break. We may see Emerson Royale return, though. He might be fit and available for this one, and the only other long-term absentee is Rodrigo Bentancur. So, Southampton versus Spurs, bro. How do you see this game going, and who's picking up the 3 points, or you'll end up with 1 each?
Southampton did play well, I thought, last week against Man United. I think they were good value for their point. I think they did come with intent. And of course, Man United, maybe, as we've talked about, playing on so many fronts, it might have been one of those games where maybe they should have been better but weren't. And Spurs, who the hell knows? I'm so sick and tired of this Spurs team, and I have no inclination towards them at all in terms of any bias. We know Conte is more than likely not going to be there next season. We said everything we said last week. We both said that they were going to win. They did quite comfortably, and that's 3 points coming in. That's good for the Predictions League. And if you're not in the Predictions League, check out the Discord. I did update it yesterday with everyone's predictions, and I am still currently sitting top. And there is a joint 3 people in third. But to bring this one to an end, because I know we've gone on for a while, and I'm so bored of talking about Spurs being awful and yet winning. I think they're going to win 1-0.
I hear that. Southampton and Spurs, 2 of the hardest teams to predict in the Premier League this year, coming up against each other. Big up yourself, King, as well. Hope you're keeping good. But yeah, this one is a difficult one to predict. You wouldn't be surprised if either side win, in all honesty. I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, right, for this one here. Southampton will score, and I do see Spurs scoring as well. Kane, he should score because he's in my FPL. And yeah, no clean sheet. Spurs dropping points. That's how we like it.
It's a weird FPL this week as well, with half the teams not playing. So if you've got 10 or 11 players out, you're doing well.
I've got 12.
Of course you have.
Exactly. Let's go through just before we get into the Wolves Leeds one. Southampton 0, Spurs 1. I do bear in mind, I didn't read out your predictions for the Man United game. I'm sorry. I forgot. Lost my head when we talk about those red cards. But Southampton 1, Spurs 2, says Luke. 3-1 Spurs, says Shay. In this game, 2. We've got 1-1 draw here from Moss. Is agreeing with me here. And talking of Swedes, King appears as well. So yeah, Pax also went with a 1-0 Spurs win. So Moss, me and you together, Pax and Ed together with that prediction there. And Luke and Shay are on their own. So yeah, will be interesting to see how this game does end. But Ed, for Wolves versus Leeds, hit us with the records and stats for this one here, my bro.
Yeah, this 6-pointer. Last 5 meetings, Wolves have played Leeds twice this season, losing once and winning one in the League Cup and losing the opening game of the season. There's 2 wins for each team with a draw in the last 5 games. Wolves, let's not talk about last week because we'll be here for another hour and a half of me ranting about last week. 3 losses in the last 5 games with 1 win and a draw. And it's exactly the same for Leeds in a slightly different order. 3 losses, a win and a draw.
And bro, I'll ask you in terms of the Wolves injury news. I'm having a look at it here, but do you have any updates?
No, I think it's the usual. We've got no Costa, no Kaladzic, no Chiquinho, and Cunha and Jota are potentially going to come back from their knocks that they picked up. So there's no huge...
Cunha who?
Cunha.
And you said Jota?
Oh, not Jota. Podence. Wrong small Portuguese player. And in terms of the defence, I think everyone's fit other than Bueno. Bueno's still not fit, ruining everyone's FPL teams.
I've just seen as well, Hwang is injured again.
Oh, is he? I didn't know that one.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have an injury with Hwang Hee-chan. He's not here, so we have to put confidence in our other players. That came out today. So, again, he's only just come back from injury, hasn't he?
Yeah, he came back and scored with his first touch last week, and then he gets injured again. He's a strange player. He's a real poacher, but I'm not overly sure what his ceiling is.
Yeah,
or his floor, to be honest. He's a very interesting one to try and put in a box.
What was your thoughts on that Newcastle game, bro? Because, massive decisions in that there. But what, in terms of your performance, how would you describe it? Because it was a little bit up and down throughout the game. At certain points you were really well,
the performance shows why we're 13th in the league and why we were bottom at Christmas, right? Because there's still a lack of gilt-edged chances being created. We're still relatively solid at the back, but there are still some mistakes in us. If you think Arsenal are an emotional team, welcome to my world, because Wolves are so emotional. It's really our downfall. We've always been an emotional team since this Portuguese influx. And I'm not saying Portuguese players are emotional. I just mean in this new era of Wolves under Fosun. It's a joke of a decision. It completely changes the game. It's a penalty and a red card. Newcastle were better than Wolves. Newcastle were maybe 6 out of 10. Wolves were 5 out of 10. It's one of the most ridiculous decisions I've seen with VAR, and we've seen some stupid ones in the last few weeks. It beggars belief. VAR is exactly... We have VAR for exactly what happened. Nick Pope is 50 yards away from the referee. The referee's positioning is fine because you think he's going long. There's no one near him. He takes a terrible touch. Jimenez is in. There's no way Jimenez goes down. He's desperate for a goal without the contact. You can clearly see on the second camera angle, there's a full shoulder into the chest, brings him down. I don't get it. No, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But take that incident out of the game if you can. The right result happened. Newcastle were better than Wolves.
Yeah, I hear that. In terms of Jimenez, you mentioned him there. I was impressed. I messaged you, bro.
And what did I message back? I'm not falling for it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it until he comes back, scores a Paxton brace that he always predicts for me, and I love it. Thank you, Paxton. Keep it coming. But until he does that, I can't. I refuse to fall back in love with him. Him and Ruben Neves have broken my heart in different places. Neves is about to break it again when he leaves, even though we get we've got contract talks with him. But that's just to make sure we get the ridiculous money we're asking for him. And Jimenez, I'm not falling for it. I'm not falling for it. I can't do it again.
I don't know, man. It's not just one game, though. It's been the last couple. I think he's
playing much better. He's got a manager that speaks Spanish, that can speak to him in his native tongue, which he really, really enjoys and thrives on. And he's got slightly more players around him now, Cunha, Hwang. Anyone who rates Podence don't. He's so hit and miss. He can be hit and miss in the same mazy run. I've never known a player like it.
There was one run in that game. He went an amazing run. He literally, the easy decision was to play it out wide, and he messed it up. And Newcastle got a counter attack on that. Yeah. You are right. He's very frustrating.
He's the player that you play on FIFA that holds L2 for everything. And he's someone else I'm not falling for either. I refuse. He can do ridiculous goals like he did against Arsenal a couple of seasons ago when he chips it over the keeper, pops it in and past Leno. But no.
Yeah.
But I am backing us to win this game. I'm backing us to beat Leeds 2-0.
Paxer says, I'm taking Jimenez over Martial swap deal. Martial better, but can't stay fit to save his life. Pax, honestly, don't know, man, because Jimenez was one of the best strikers in the world at one point, I think, in terms of his form. All-round game was ridiculous. Like, he's scoring goals, hold-up play. Like, he was... when Wolves were flying under Nuno, he was... I wanted that in my striker. Run the channels, hold it well, play passes, score goals, left foot, right foot, header, penalties, you name it.
That Nuno team only worked because we had a literal complete forward up front that could do everything you wanted. And I've not seen it in a Wolves shirt for so many years. Maybe ever, to be honest. I think if we're talking about sheer ability, maybe ever. I'm 38 now. But it's nuts. But I don't want Martial either, because I don't want someone else to enjoy for a game and then he gets injured and we don't see him for another 3 months. I don't want either of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the last game he did play was against you as well, wasn't it? For Martial. So yeah, that's true. Oh, fair enough, Pax. Fairs. Let's have a look into your predictions. Actually, we haven't even given our prediction for this one yet.
I have 2-0. 2-0 Wolves.
2-0 Wolves. I think it'll be an interesting one. I think Leeds will score a goal, so I'm going to go for 2-1. 2-1 Wolves to win this one here. Wolves back at home. 3:00 kickoff. Stepdad Courtney's going to the game, so should be interesting. Of course, and Moss will be watching all the 3:00 kickoffs on Across the Pond Sports Talk. So go check them out, people, right there. And Luke, I'm not sure if Luke's going to be on, but he might pop in or something. So yeah, go check it out, people, with Luke and Moss's channel there. Paxton's gone for a 2-0 Wolves win, as well as Luke with this one here. Jimenez brace. And Moss has gone for a 1-1 draw with Raul and Yonto with the goals. Shea has gone for a 1-1 draw with Patrick Bamford scoring for Leeds right there. So let's move on now into the next game. We got the final 4 games, I believe. Is it 4?
I think so, yeah.
Final 4 games. This is the penultimate Premier League one with Brentford versus Leicester in this one here. Ed, hit us with the records and stats for this one, and you guys get your predictions into the chat box.
Yeah, so interestingly, Leicester have won 4 of the last 5 with just a 1 draw in this particular fixture. Brentford, they should have another win in there because they did win midweek, but I didn't get it in there. But it stays the same: 2 wins, 2 draws, and a loss. And for Leicester, holding the L, just like the start of their name, 5 losses on the bounce.
Injury news for Brentford. We won't see King Lewis Potter until after the international break. He's got a knee injury at the moment, so it's a shame for him, but not really a starter for them, so it shouldn't really impact their starting 11 too much. In terms of the starting 11, Christopher Aguirre, he won't be back until after the international break as well. His time at Brentford has been played with injuries, but having a look into his injury history, he did suffer a few injuries whilst he was at Celtic as well. Very good centre-back, I think, Christopher Aguirre, but injuries is his issue. He's got a calf one, so he's unavailable for the game tomorrow. Vitaly Janelt, he's also out with a knee injury. There's no return date for him yet, so hopefully it's not too bad. He's a key cog into their engine in that midfield when he starts or comes in off of the bench. And then also Mads Roslev, he's also out with an injury. He could be back, actually. Sorry, he's got a late fitness test after he's been sorting out a thigh injury at the moment. And Thomas Strakosha, who has had his time there, played with injury on the bench as a backup goalkeeper, but we don't expect him to return until after the international break. For Leicester, they've got a few injuries as well. For James Justin, Yuri Tielemans, Victor Christensen, Wout Faes is out with a suspension. Ryan Bertrand is also out, and Yannick Vestergaard. But we may see Johnny Evans return as he could just come back from injury, but then he's got another one. He should be, hopefully, he'll be all right for this one for Leicester, as they do have a bit of an injury crisis at the moment. But Ed, my prediction for this one, Brentford versus Leicester, I've got to go with the home side. Brentford to keep on that roll. Disappointing that they didn't win against Everton, because where would have taken them in the Premier League? Let me just have a look. If they would have won, that would have taken them to sixth. Yeah, so yeah, we're fighting, knocking on that top 4 spot. They are 1 point behind Liverpool, who are in 6th with 26 games played, but they'll go ahead of Liverpool if they do manage to win, and I think they will. Ivan Toney got that call up. Interesting, by the way. I'm surprised he got it, given the situation around him at the moment. But I think it's going to be a 2-0 Brentford win. Ivan Toney to score as well, and I need Rico Henry. Get on there. Give me an attacking return and a clean sheet, please.
Yeah, I back everything you just said, but I went for 3-0. And I think, Paxton, we can, all of your chat about Jimenez and red cards, Danny Ward to keep a clean sheet is one of the most controversial predictions I've ever heard in my life, let alone just this evening.
There you go. That's crazy. What's your prediction, Ro?
3-0. 3-0.
Oh, it's 3-0. Sorry. Yeah, you did say 3-0. My apologies. 1-0. Wow. Crazy. For Leicester, he's backing his home, his local team. That's what he's doing, Paxton. I hear that. The heart over the head speaking right there. Brentford 2-1, says Moss. I think I'd Super Brew over Foxes. He says Toney with 2 goals, with 1 being a penalty kick, and Daka for Leicester right there. Shea's gone for a 2-2 draw and Toney to score 2. Toney red card just to bring the Brentford goal into things. Wait there. Paxton has gone for a Brentford game without Ivan Toney scoring. I've just got that. Nah. Pax, are you feeling okay? Are you?
It's been a long stream, T. It's almost 2 hours.
It has been. And Luke's gone for a 2-0 Brentford win as well. And this is the final Premier League game that we've got right here in Aston Villa versus Bournemouth. Hit us with the records and stats for this one, bro.
Yeah, so Villa against Bournemouth. Aston Villa have bizarrely lost 4 of the last 5 against Bournemouth, going back to Championship days with 1 win for Villa. Villa's form, not bad. Definitely upturned since Emery's there. 2 wins, 2 losses and a draw. And Bournemouth, of course, in a rich vein of form for a team down there, with 2 wins, 2 losses and a draw.
Villa, no Coutinho, no Dendonka, no Boubacar Kamara up until after the international break for them. And for Bournemouth, James Tavernier, no Tavernier, Stanislas, or Zabarini, I can't pronounce his name, the Ukrainian centre-back for them until after the international break. And Hamid Traore, though, he could return for them, the signing from Sassuolo. Ed, what's your prediction for this one here? Villa against Bournemouth. I think it's interesting because Bournemouth have performed well in the last 2 games, I'd say. And they picked up their first win. Well, they've only won 2 games this year, I believe, which was against you and Liverpool. So that's massive for them. But what's your prediction for this one?
Yeah, I think, like you talked about earlier, the best thing for Bournemouth is that they score goals. But I am backing Villa in this game, so I'm going with I'm going for goals in this one. I'm going for 3-2. 3-2 to Villa.
3-2 Villa. I do think missing Kamara is going to be an issue for them. And I've put Philip Billing in my FPL team for that reason.
Good player.
And I think, what a player. Yeah, quality player. I really do rate him. And if, those most middling clubs, you'd like to have a Philip Billing, would you have him as a potential replacement for Nunez if he left?
Yeah, we'd have to make a lot of money on that deal, I think, to get that. But yes, I would. I wanted Philip Billing when he got relegated the last time.
Yeah.
So
he's got a goal in him as well
for
a midfielder. So yeah, he's
tall, rangy, can run with the ball.
Technically decent, got a goal in him. Yeah, fair play to him. So yeah, I do think it will be a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this one. Yeah, I think missing Kamara, it will be an issue for Villa for this one here. Paxton's gone for a 2-1 Aston Villa win, and Luke's gone for a 2-1 Bournemouth win. So we've got some differences here. So guys, get your predictions in the comments as well afterwards in here too. Shay's gone for a 3-1 win. And for the final 2 games, we got the Brighton and Hove Albion up against Grimsby in this one here. Do you have any stats?
I mean, if you want to know, the last 5 meetings between these 2 teams, it's 2 wins each and a draw, but they last played each other when T was still at school in 2004. So take absolutely nothing into that. They played each other mostly in League 2 and League 3, in like Division 3 back in the day, Division 2 back in the day.
There you go, right there. It's hard to find injury news for Grimsby. It is indeed. But in terms of Brighton in this game, they will have no Adam Lallana, no Mulder, no Tariq Lamptey in this game here. But we all expect a Brighton win. The only player that I honestly have seen ever kick a ball for Grimsby is Sean Scannell, who used to play for Crystal Palace back in the day when Wilfred Zaha was first breaking through, when they got promoted from the
Balassi and all those players.
Balassi, yeah. Who else can I remember? You have Jonathan Pars, those names. If the Crystal Palace fans will know what I'm talking about. So yeah, it's been a while. Sean Scannell, the only one, 32. And I think he plays for Ireland as well. He made some international appearances for Ireland. So yeah, but Grimsby, they're much more famous for the movie with Sacha Baron Cohen in there. You've never seen it, Grimsby?
No.
Has anyone ever seen Grimsby, the film? It was all right. It was a comedy one. It was quite interesting. But yeah, what's your score prediction for this one, and how much of Brighton are going to win this by?
I'm going to say Brighton by 3 goals to 0. And I've just checked. Sean Scannell never played for the full Ireland team, but he played for all the underage teams.
Oh, did he? Fair play. Fair play to Sean Scannell. Unlucky he wasn't able to get an appearance during his youth days right there. I'm going to say a 4-0 Brighton win. in this one. They tend to score quite a few goals in these types of games, and De Zerbi has really got them flowing in that sense. Big up Tender Item in here right there saying, we did it, we won for Newcastle. And he says, important win for us, puts us into the conversation for top 4 push. 5 points ahead of Liverpool and putting pressure on Spurs and Man United, though. I don't think we get top 4 by May. But hey, you're a point off now off Spurs, who are currently holding that with a game in hand, and 2 points off Man United. This top 4 race is heating up. It didn't look like a battle not too long ago, but you are certainly in there now. There is a film called Grimsby. I will have to have a look for you and dash it into the Discord. But yeah, let's see your predictions in here, guys. Paxton's gone for a tight 1-0 win for Brighton. Luke's gone for a 3-0 win, same as Ed there. Shay's gone for another tight win for Brighton. And Moss has gone for a 2-0 win right here. Yeah, Luke's seen the film. It was decent, I thought. It is. Big one there. And a final game, FA Cup, Sheffield United. Could have been Spurs in this one. Sheffield United at home to Blackburn. This, some historical clubs, would you say? With the history?
Yeah, definitely. I think both teams would have won this competition back in the day, I'd imagine, as well. And you've got Lancashire versus Yorkshire as well, of course.
Yes, so true. War of the Roses.
You've got the War of the Roses over the Pennines and all that nonsense. Sheffield has the oldest football club ever, and Blackburn, of course, in the inaugural Football League back in 1880, whatever. So very historic clubs, both in the Championship. So I did put their last 5 meetings in because obviously they will be relevant. 3 wins for Sheffield United and 2 wins for Blackburn. So there hasn't been a draw in the last 5 games between these 2 teams.
That's a fantastic question. Is it because we're in the quarterfinals now? Is it straight to penalties?
I don't know.
They may have changed it. That's a great question right there. FA Cup. That's a good question. Ed, you have a look at that.
Extra time and pens.
Extra time and pens. Right. Interesting. Because they only brought that in recently, didn't they? They used to be quarterfinal extra replays, but extra time and pens.
So straight to extra time. So if you're drawn at home, it's a massive advantage because you don't have to go away.
Yeah, exactly that there. What's your prediction for Sheffield United versus Blackburn in this one? They beat Tottenham. They're a good team. They are a good team. But so Blackburn, they're a bit up and down.
Blackburn aren't bad as well. And obviously they've got Stoke's own Chilean striker up front as well. So that's always interesting. Without pretending I know much about either club.
Sheffield United's second, by the way.
Yeah,
Blackburn in 5th.
Yeah, so it'll be a good game. I like Billy Sharp, so I'm going to back him over the Chilean Potter. So I'm going to go for 2-1. 2-1 to Sheffield United. But that is based literally on where they are in the league. I can't pretend to know anything about them.
Yeah, both teams are looking for promotion. It's crazy. They're both facing each other in an FA Cup where their attention is trying to get into the Premier League. But there's a semi-final, an FA Cup semi-final at stake.
It's incredible.
That's crazy. Yeah. So it could be an amazing season for one of these clubs. Do you know what? You've gone for Sheffield United. I'm going to go against you. I'm going to back Rovers in this one. Come on, Blackburn. Brenton Diaz is going to score the winner. 1-0 Blackburn in this game here.
And to answer Moss's question, I'll go on what the score is at 90 minutes. That's probably the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, may as well. Yeah, may as well do it now. So yes, guys, that is all the fixtures that we've done in our Premier League and FA Cup special. It is an even longer one that we usually do because we spoke about so much in terms of this here. Go check it out, people. Get your thoughts in the comment section. Drop a comment as well. It just helps in terms of the algorithm. So thank you to each and every one of you that is locked in right now, that we got people watching here. Make sure you do smash that like button. Get your predictions in the comments if you're watching afterwards. And if you're watching here now, as soon as we end this stream, just slap something in there as well. We do appreciate it. Ed, any final words?
Same as always, get your predictions in and who can beat Paxton this week.
Exactly. Who can do it? He's on a roll at the moment. There was one week where someone beat him because Paxson was busy. He wasn't here on the live stream. So
yeah, that one doesn't count. But I really appreciate everyone who's stuck with us as well. We've had 7 or 8 people for pretty much for the whole 2 hours, so that's pretty incredible.
Exactly. Big up each and every one of you. Wow, still on. Was this an Arsenal show I missed? It does get
it started off like the Arsenal show.
We had 40 minutes, of an Arsenal show right here. But
we had some therapy, didn't we, T? Some therapy for you to get over the European disappointment.
Exactly that. So yes, people, appreciate you all. We're gonna love and leave you. Enjoy the weekend's games as well. Whatever you're doing, stay safe and come on, Arsenal. Let's go 8 points clear and come on, City. We need more games for you guys, and let's hope United are out of a competition because you guys are annoying now. I appreciate you. Take care, people. We're out.